White Lotus is a show I've enjoyed for a few years now. With its ethereal music, gorgeous locations, and stark social commentary, it always manages to touch on something surreal. For me, there was always a guilty pleasure in watching rich assholes in their natural element. And while seasons 1 and 2 focused on the power dynamics between the guests and the employees, season 3 takes a look inward and poses the question of identity. Are we merely our outer personas and material possessions, or the stories we tell ourselves? And is it even possible to define ourselves not in relation to others? In this video, I'll be analyzing what the show has to say about it all. The first aspect I want to touch on is the idea of our outer personas. The idea of our outer personas is explored through the Rattler family. They come from a world of image and perception, where the most valued commodity is how people see you, a sentiment most outwardly expressed by matriarch Victoria and her unsolicited quick judgments of people and situations. To her, your outward appearance and decisions are who you are, whether you realize it or not. Although not as outwardly vocal as his wife, Patriarch Tim values his position as a successful finance guy, provider, and pillar of the community, also gaining a sense of pride coming from a prestigious family in North Carolina. However, his world is rocked when he loses everything and no longer can identify with his outer persona. After much drug-induced deliberation, he initially finds a twisted sense of resolution through death, not taking the monk's lesson as a way to work through the oncoming hardship, but to avoid it altogether. He would rather that he and his materialistic family members not exist anymore than have to change. He does, however, eventually accept the futility of fighting against the oncoming change and embraces the fact that who you are today is not necessarily who you are tomorrow. Saxon, the eldest and golden child of the family, comes across as straightforward, brash, and entitled. I say child because there is a boyish element to his eagerness. With a facsimile of a personality built on domination and financial success, and being his father's son, he walks around with the belief that that will be sufficient in the place of inner and spiritual enlightenment. When he initially tries and fails at seducing Chelsea, his ego will not let him consider any insufficiencies within himself. If anything, he doubles down, intending to still sleep with Chelsea purely as a challenge to overcome, and once again demonstrate his sheer masculine prowess. It is no coincidence then that the woman who does go along with the shenanigans is the young sugar baby of Greg, Chloe, someone who is much more shameless and transparent with her purely transactional relationships. But despite his flaws, Saxon is proactive. When he realizes how others could view and use him in his persona, he consciously makes the effort to steer himself in another direction, stemming from the realization of a lack of intimacy in his life as he sees Chelsea's devotion to Rick. Piper can be seen as someone who is more than the material comforts surrounding her. Coming off as disciplined and perhaps even strict, it appears that she is the odd one out in her family, desperately trying to escape her parents' mindset, even going so far as choosing an entirely different religion to that of her parents to base her identity off of. Despite the reveal that she dragged her family to Thailand under false pretenses, one can still relate to her desire for inner exploration and discovery of oneself. Perhaps our true identity is something to be realized regardless of where we are. That sounds nice until we actually have to change our surroundings, not realizing a lot of what we think and do is a product of our circumstances. Rich people have certain mannerisms and habits that the poor will never relate to, and vice versa. This is essentially what Victoria preaches to her and is eventually proven right with this hilariously twisted scene.
We're lucky. It's true. No one in the history of the world has lived better than we have. Even the old kings and queens. The least we can do is enjoy it. If we don't, it's offensive. It's an offense to all the billions of people who can only dream that one day they could live like we do. Oh, baby, come here.
I'm really sorry. I brought you guys here.
It is also worth noting how her ego gets bruised when Lachlan also wants to join the monastery and she realizes she is not as unique as she thought she was. Lachlan, the youngest, does not seem to have a strong sense of self outside of one of his siblings. He maybe is subconsciously programmed to be a people pleaser, but he does receive a golden nugget of advice.
No one's gonna make you a man. Okay, you gotta do it yourself.
There may be somewhat paradoxical feelings of fear and empowerment, but if we must work towards our desired states, it is something only each and every one of us can do for ourselves. And speaking of our desired states, that brings me on to the friend group. Whenever they are together, there is a sentiment that they do not change, sticking to old toxic behavior, something they gossip about constantly. In addition, there seems to be this idea that they are comfortable with their identities, flaws, and all. Jacqueline cannot let go of being the young, beautiful actress despite all of the backstabbing she experiences. Lori is comfortable presenting herself as the odd one out, always being shortchanged by her friends, lovers, and colleagues. There is a comfort in sticking to what you know, even if it is suffering. When it comes to Rick, we can see the consequences of locking yourself into a defined identity and purpose. He no doubt had a harrowing childhood with his mother dying when he was very young and him not meeting his father. If you are to go with the premise that our environments create who we are, he very much is a product of pain. The identity he has stuck with brings him suffering, with the destructive cycles of failures and shitty outcomes being the norm. Rick's tale is a classic case of not being able to let go of the past and how that affects your present and destroys any chance at future happiness. The sensible lesson to take away from him is to accept the metamorphosis of our own ideas of ourselves. Through Chelsea, we explore the idea of our connections, romantic or otherwise, revealing our true selves. Not only are we all connected, but even organized as part of some divine plan. If you are a believer in true love, you would probably not have major differing views as Chelsea's thoughts on love. Her radical acceptance of her place and role in the cosmos means she is willing to play out her role in whichever system she finds herself in, seeing herself and her partner as important, albeit constantly opposing parts of a greater whole, with the whole superseding the individual parts. Moreover, her acceptance is so grand that even after recognizing potential harm in her situation, she still plows full steam ahead. The major flaw with her philosophy is that she seems to place everything on the system, circumventing her own needs in the process. Of course, that can lead to great harm, as one also needs to be aware of one's own needs when engaging in relationships. Now, if you're watching this video, I don't need to tell you how it ends for her and her partner. I will only mention the obvious and correct lesson to gather from all this. Be mindful of your actions on others, but be careful not to place others' needs above yours. It does not serve anyone in the end. I also just want to give a quick mention to Guy Talk and his storyline. It is worth mentioning Guy Talk and how he had to betray himself and his values in order to get ahead career-wise, and the affections of Mook. Something Tanya also does when she seems at first apprehensive to the idea of receiving $100,000 to stay quiet about Tanya's death, but when that number increases, it seems that she is more malleable than we initially thought, essentially telling us that if you want to get ahead, you somewhat do have to betray one of your values or change something about yourself. Well, that is my breakdown of the season and my thoughts and musings about what it all meant. Let me know in the comments if you agree or have any differing opinions or even your own theories about it all. Thanks for watching. See you next time.